Hi, this is Braidien
and Raen.
This is the second episode from our chat with Susie that we recorded at camp. This episode is different to normal as we discuss subjects such as young people's mental health, education in the UK and CAMHS.
So you're saying this. We talk a lot at your tables. We talk a lot, and you're a very open book.
Yes.
And one thing I think a lot of people know is you're very passionate for mental health, specifically teen mental health.
Yes, I am. Do you want me to tell you what I do around mental health?
It might be good if you explain it for people.
Okay, so I've been a youth worker nearly for 40 years. I'm 109. And I have always been passionate about young people. I use the word holistically. As a Christian, I'm passionate about young people exploring a faith, their own faith. I'm not someone that rams it down their throats. I want to create space where people can explore, but I'm also very passionate that young people flourish emotionally and mentally and physically and socially in every sphere of their life. But mental health has become increasingly more prioritized in my youth work over the years. And I think we have dismissed young people's experience of low mental health far too much over the years, which is why we find ourselves in what I would term a crisis at the moment. A lot of us say, oh, everything's okay now because we've got COVID behind us, but the statistics do not tell us that. So I am a mental health first aid instructor for young people. So I train people to look for the early signs of low mental health in children and young people. And I'm also a suicide first aid instructor. I am super passionate that we talk about mental health all the time. So we take it out of a place of taboo and stigma and put it into a place of light so that young people, if they're feeling low and their mental health is not great, feel comfortable enough to be able to tell somebody that they're not doing great. The day someone can ring up their workplace and say, do you know what? My anxiety is so high today that I can only just get myself through the shower. And for someone at the other end to say, okay, are you all right? Can I get you some shopping? Do you need anything? Much like we would if someone rang into work and said they had COVID or they had the flu or something. We are still educating a world to really deeply understand the impact of low mental health. Yeah. And I am a huge advocate for that.
Yeah, because it's really important. I think that's really important what you do, Susie.
Thank you. And because I work for the Church of England, you know, sometimes in the church we don't get it right either. And we need to be talking a lot more about mental health and different aspects of it. From our pulpits, metaphorically as well as literally, and to be a place where people feel safe to talk about it as well. Still quite a lot of old-fashioned thinking about some areas of low mental health that are still around, and I'm a challenger of that, and I make no apology for it.
Yeah, that's so powerful as well.
Yeah, thanks. And we've all got our own experiences of low mental health.
Yeah.
We all come from a place where we know people. I have, you know, my family went through a really difficult situation a few years back, and that has spurred me on even more to talk about stuff that other people just say, oh no, you mustn't talk about that, when actually we should. And I think the more we talk about low mental health, you just don't know who's in the room with you when you do that. And you don't know who's going to say, do you know what you've been talking about really impacted me because I've been feeling like that and I didn't know who I could talk to. And so the more space we make for people to talk out about mental health, talk up about it. And I think some of the best people to do that are our young people. They're knowledgeable, they understand it, they experience it. And, you know, we often stick young people in these... Sorry, you've set me off on one now. This could be hours.
No, this is
don't worry.
important.
I think we put young people, if in lots of cases, into waiting rooms where we wait till they're 18 before we ask them their opinion on things, before we give them the opportunity to serve their communities, their churches, their schools, to give them an opportunity to give their opinions, which is why I love Hafway so much, because they are countercultural in that. They are always giving young people opportunity to speak up and speak out. The fact that you guys are, you know, devising, you're not being given these pieces of paper with these questions on by Maura and Esther, you're creating them yourself. They're coming from your insight and imagination and creativity.
And I like the way that camp does our conversations in Cafe 1010 about the story, because it brings out a lot to do with how a young person feels and thinks and the way they view the world, which is so related to how their mental health is. Right. And it creates this safe space where people really can be vulnerable.
100%.
I have something else I just want to have a question for. So I know I went through the guidance counselor and like the therapy provided by my high school. Braidien, did you?
No.
What I and a lot of my friends found was that it was lacking. It was so lacking, and the priority very clearly was to get students back in classrooms and not to help them. And I wanted to ask your opinion on that, kind of how mental health is treated in education settings, especially because it's that vital age, I feel.
Yeah. It's a tough one because anybody who's listening to this who is, and I work for an education department, most of my work is around schools, and a lot of the work that I do is around training teachers and other school staff to spot those really early signs of things like anxiety, depression. Police helicopter.
Okay.
It's coming to arrest me. Give it 5 minutes. Because I train a lot of teachers as mental health first aiders, and suicide first aiders, to spot those early signs, to have intervention conversations, etc. I think it's really important that we help young people's mental health before I don't think you can cut a corner in that. And I think getting them back into the classroom is ideal for their benefit, but not if they're vulnerable and not if they're feeling like, if they're coming to school and they're having a really tough day. I think there needs to be space and provision for young people who are struggling. And the way, and we're nationally, and I don't want to get political about it, but the reality is that CAMHS is under massive pressure at the moment.
Absolutely.
People are quite quick to knock CAMHS, but they are absolutely against it, with the number of young people waiting to be seen who are non-urgent. And I think we are in a real crisis at the moment where our schools and other places where young people gather, we don't have enough people who can identify those early signs. Because my philosophy is that if you have enough adults or, leaders around young people, whether that's in a school or a youth group, that spot those really early signs of low mental health, whether that's an eating disorder, whether that's depression, whether that's psychosis, whether that's anxiety, and they can do an intervention there and then, it's hopefully stops that young person going further down the spectrum to a point of crisis where only CAMHS would help.
I think I think it actually hurts a lot of people when they're on that waiting list and aren't seen, because it gives them that thing of, I'm not urgent. I'm not I'm not urgent. I'm not that bad. And it kind of makes them feel as though, personally, I've never been on the CAMHS waiting list. But it kind of creates that sense that, I'm fine because they're not seeing me, when realistically they are absolutely swamped.
Absolutely. And I mean, it changes all the time in terms of, and wherever you are in the country, what's the intervention while you're waiting to be seen by CAMHS? Is there a way that we can skill up people to suggest coping strategies and mechanisms that might support someone a day to day? We're all different, so we all need different coping strategies. We do, when we train people in mental health first aid, we do this thing called the stress container, which is about, where everything you're worried about goes in your stress container. But what do you do that's healthy, that helps you to release those stresses? But what do we do that's unhealthy, that doesn't release those stresses before it overwhelms and you become overwhelmed by the amount of stress that you have in your stress container? But what we need is people around us to help each other to put in place those mechanisms and those strategies that work well for us. For some people, a run really helps with their mental well-being. For me, no. Sit me down with a craft, with my journaling stuff, and that would be, so everyone's different. And we need to help people to find the right strategies that help them. It's not a one fix wonder.
I have something to say, but Braidien, do you have anything first?
I was just going to say that Hafway do that a lot because they're very personalised.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And they're trained.
Yeah. This goes back somewhat to what we were saying with Nicole yesterday, where Hafway have this way, they make you feel like they care about you as well. Because they do care about you as a person.
100%.
And they kind of ensure that everybody has that time one-on-one, to be honest.
Yes.
What I was going to say is what I think is some of the most important things for mental health like advocacy in education systems is when we have like these talks and these people that come into schools, that absolutely makes or breaks. Our high school, mine and Braidien's high school, we had quite a lot of things about mental health and like addiction and everything that were awful. I don't know how many you sat in, but I sat in loads.
A lot of people would just like either ignore it or make fun of it, like especially like the male population would just like they wouldn't take it seriously at all.
I think that's something to do with male mental health and how it's seen in society, but that's a whole other thing.
That's a whole but that needs addressing to young men at school age, because the increase in particularly in eating disorders in young men is massively increasing.
But as soon as you have a company that does it well, it's brilliant. My college, we had some days where we'd have people come in, and honestly, we had a lot of those really boring, long talks. It was just like, God, why am I here? I'm not going to remember anything. But then we had this one, which was called Loudspeaker, and I will absolutely say their name because they are phenomenal. I want everybody to see them. Loudspeaker is absolutely amazing, and they talk about so many topics, but genuinely, they are one of the best I've seen. I think they should be more popular. I think they should be in more schools. Because and it's those ones that are really good that are needed.
Can I ask you a question on that then, Rain? Sorry to interrupt you. Do you get a chance to feedback that?
Absolutely.
So the fact that you're saying they were great, lots of people engage with it, do you get an opportunity to say that to your school? So your school goes, oh yeah, well, let's make sure we get them back in again.
We have different ways of doing that.
Great.
That's not something I had at my high school as well. The teachers, they thought about what they wanted. They didn't think about what actually the kids were responding to and what they wanted as much, which is harder when it's like 5 years and like thousands of kids. Absolutely. But it's still so important because it's thousands of kids. It's kids that are going to influence each other. It's kids that are in similar situations because they live in the same area. They do the same things. Like, it's so important at high school age that you have those good groups, I think.
I agree.
I think I have a much different experience because we had a lot of stuff in my primary school even.
That's good.
Yeah, because I mean, I've got a different experience with CAMHS as well, because I think I was like almost, well, pretty like not recently, but I got into CAMHS like pretty easily in primary school. But then after that, they just kind of like, once they've seen you and like you're in CAMHS, they tend to leave you alone. Like they don't, like once you turn 18, they don't like give you anything else. They just say, oh, okay, you're not 18 anymore, you're out. Like, they don't give you any other resources.
Yeah, that's right.
I find.
Yeah, that's tough. But you're right, Braidien, about primary school. And I've worked with a few primary schools. One where we've trained every single member of staff, dinner assistants, receptionists, caretaker, governors, as well as all the school staff, you know, teaching staff and classroom staff. And also a school not far from Hafway are writing their own mental health policy for their primary school with their pupils, with the children, and focusing it around their vision and values. But I think the earlier we educate young people and children in good mental health, the better, really.
Absolutely.
And you know, there was a thing that I went to, and I'm going to forget this, but it was all about food, recreation, eating. No, that's the same as food. It was a guy called Dr. Fred, and I can't remember what the FRED. I think it was food, recreation, I can't remember what the E stood for, and D was devices, and just trying to take ourselves off our phones a bit more. And that's rich coming from me because, you know, I'm scrolling all the time. But I think it's understanding what triggers our low mental health from a young age can have really good, can be a really good grounding as you move into secondary school. If we know ourselves well enough to know what makes us feel super anxious or what makes us feel low or what triggers any kind of behavior associated with a mental health illness.
even if you can't name it, because
absolutely
it's difficult to kind of understand, but as soon as you can go, I'm uncomfortable, I want this, I want that, it helps so much.
And even having a conversation like this is so important, because we can often be super reactive to low mental health. And, you know, people say, oh, you know, we only talk about mental health when someone's really struggling. But actually, if we can talk about mental health like we talk about craft, or like we talk about the football, then actually it makes it much easier for people to say, well, actually today I'm not doing great, and others will go, oh, okay, right, how can we support you, to talk about it normally, as if it, you know, and normalize it. I mean, you still hear people saying, oh yeah, I've got mental health. Well, everyone's got mental health. But you know, if our mental health is low and we don't use the term bad because we don't want to make it a negative thing, but you know, let's not just talk about it as a reaction, let's talk about it proactively as well.
I think now that me and Braidien are kind of we're in the older group with the older kids, we've got a lot of young people at Hafway now, especially because the year 6s going into year 7s are now joining us. I think it's important that we openly have these conversations at Hafway so that those younger ones know that, hey, it's okay. If the ones that have been there longer that are like trusted by the leaders and everything and are having these conversations openly, I think it could help so much with them feeling they can come forward.
So important. And it's so important that you're saying that, Rain. It's so important that both of you are advocating for that. That is why it's so important that we listen to the voices of young people. Because if we just say it as adults, that we think that's what young people think, it has no value or consequence whatsoever. Your voices are the ones that need to be heard. And as I say to young people all the time, speak out and speak up so that you're heard and the content that what you're saying is really valuable.
Yeah, this is why I love Hafway. They're very focused on youth, like only like the young people. You really hear from the young people.
They are completely for you through and through. You know, that's why I'm such a big fan. You know, it is coincidence that Moira and Esther are good friends of mine, but it's not coincident either, because they're just doing an amazing job. Amazing job. But actually what happens when we work with young people, and my experience of working with young people, and I've been a youth worker in a church, I've been a chaplain in a high school, I've worked with young people in all kinds of contexts. I am the person I am today because of them, because of what they've taught me, because of their wisdom, because of their insight, because of their kind of logic, their perception of life, their you know, because of them, we become better adults. It's not, youth work isn't just about us sharing stuff with young people so that they might have a better kind of holistic chance at life. We're better adults because we get a chance to work with heroes like yourselves, because you bring wisdom and substance and insight that we can't see because we're older and we don't know what the gritty stuff is that's going on at school. And that's why it's great that, you know, you can sit and talk about mental health or other issues that affect you with such clarity and experience. It's so important.
I was talking to...
I've got goosebumps now.
I was talking to Chelsea fairly recently. To Chelsea?
Yeah.
About kind of what relationships are dating are like in our generation.
Ooh.
Because I think I do genuinely think that relationships have such a big impact on mental health. I think me and Dave were talking about this kind of yesterday as well. Some people... because of how young people get into relationships and because of how fast some things go, people feel kind of obligated to be a certain way or to do certain things, which wasn't the point I was making to either adult, but
it's a very good point though.
But it's the way that Chelsea kind of had no idea what it was like to date in this generation, and she was completely shocked by the way that it is. But Chelsea has 2 young girls who are not at the point where they're dating, I don't think, but when they get to our age and they're getting in relationships, if that's what they want, I think then it'll be nice that Chelsea has that awareness that, hey, relationships aren't great, and they might cause damage. Relationships can always cause damage when there's heartbreak, but because of how it is in this generation, it's so much more common for people to be treated wrong and not have any idea about it. And I think it's important kind of, so she now as a parent has a bit more awareness than what she did before we had that conversation. And that, I think that goes back to the fact that you shouldn't treat teenagers or children like children. You should treat them like smaller adults. They should be talked to like they're adults. They should be respected and treated like they are adults.
100%.
Obviously, they will still be more vulnerable at points because there's less life experience, absolutely. But a lot of parents, they don't get that, hey, they are their own people and they have their own awareness and feelings and maturity that they need to be heard in order to really be themselves as a person. Braidien.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I was going to say, a lot of parents think like they might treat their child how they would want to be treated when they were a teenager, but in reality, things might have changed a lot since they were a teenager,
100%.
I think.
I couldn't agree with you more, both of you. I would have to say that. I was in a shopping queue in a supermarket once, and I just, for some reason, had to buy a cucumber, and I don't know why. Because normally I buy more than just a cucumber, because I of course, visited the stationery aisle. Mm-hmm. But that day, I just had a cucumber in my hand, and there's a lady in front of me who was significantly older than me, and there were a couple of teenagers in front of her, and I always get my kind of what I call my metaphorical puffer jacket on when I hear young people being spoken about negatively. And these two young people paid for what they were doing. One of them was on the phone and one of them was doing the transaction. Mm-hmm. They were doing nothing wrong at all. And this lady in front of me just went, oh, young people today, they don't know what it's like to live. They don't know what it's like to exist in the world. They have things so easy. And that literally lit my touch paper. And I turned to her. I did put the cucumber down. Otherwise, I might have come across quite aggressive, approaching a lady older than myself with a salad item. But actually, I put her right. Because I said, never have young people been in such a transitional world than they are today, where mental health is the increase in low mental health amongst young people is there. Mm-hmm. What you're saying about relationships, not just with each other in terms of dating relationships, but with parents, with friendships, etc., etc. And you're navigating all of this in a deeply troubled and fragile world, mm-hmm. with all the layers of what's going on in our country in terms of leadership. Nobody out there, well, very few people out there are really good, positive leadership role models. We won't talk about President Trump, but the level of uncertainty around our world and the ecology of our world and the environment of our world. So I'm very quick to put people right. I have no objection to doing that whatsoever.
You were talking about COVID briefly earlier and how people think because it's over, it's all fine. But I think an important thing is that teenagers in this generation are not fully socially developed because of COVID. Because being put in isolation for 2 years? Yeah. Like, it changes your development and it changes your mind and how it works. And there's a reason so many of us are so anxious. Not that people who grew up outside of COVID weren't anxious, but there's a reason that so many are anxious because we don't know how to communicate as well, and that's what I think so many adults believe we're rude because we aren't how they were. But even then, they can be, and they're still treated wrong.
But I don't think you have to meet anybody's standards.
Exactly.
You be who you are. You communicate how you communicate. And COVID has done all kinds of things to affect us in so many different ways. None of us expected to be in our houses for the length of time that we were, and for you guys to be navigating your education and your development. You know, adults might moan about it, but young people did. It was a struggle. But I think there's a resilience about young people, which I don't think many adults really get. And I think you will tell this story in years to come, and others will find strength from it because of your resilience in the midst of it. To be able to talk about it now, I think you're absolutely right, Rain. But I think you should take some pride in the way that you navigated it too. I think we're too quick to talk about how young people have been affected negatively, but let's cheer for those young people who have been who've really navigated it and built up their resilience because of it as well.
We need to do an episode just about COVID and how it's affected teenagers. This has made me really passionate about because I have so many opinions on it. Okay.
Yeah. This was Braidien
and Raen
and Susie.
If you're affected by any of the subjects in this episode, then you can find helpful information on websites such as CAMHS, Young Mind, Couth and Papyrus.